And we're back, I think.
Woo! I think too. I'm not sure, but I think we are.
It's Friday, So happy Friday, everybody. I am Lenny Murphy. Welcome to the second edition of the Green Book Exchange. I am joined by Karen Lynch. Karen, how are you?
I am excellent. How are you?
Good. Now, are you? Because I happen to know that you were on a terrible flight and didn't get into 2:30 this morning. So, are you excellent?
I am actually excellent. So yes, so I didn't get home till 2:30 in the morning. When you do the West Coast to East Coast travel, you lose 12 hours of your life to travel. But it's good because I spent the week with our team out there. So I spent the week with Kara and Bridget and Natalie and Grace, who are all in this Seattle area, and we did some process mapping and we had some great conversations. So it's really good to get FaceTime with team members when you are, first of all, working on other coasts virtually. So it was a great week. So I'm exhausted, and that probably will show in my articulation, but I'm satisfied because it was a great week.
Good. Well, I'm glad that it was a great
Yeah.
week, and yeah, that's a rough flight. It's not as bad as overseas, but it's not particularly fun. So
I know. Yeah, it's fine.
yeah,
I had a good Uber driver on the way back from JFK though. Like he was a really good Uber driver. So it's, 1 o'clock in the morning and he was just chatting and chatting and chatting. And we were talking about all the places that he's traveled to. So it was really engaging, which I don't always like, but I really liked my Uber driver. So, you know, fingers crossed that I'll get him again because he was fantastic.
hey, it's one of the small joys of travel, right? When
Seriously.
you take what you can get, you find the pleasures
Seriously.
where we can. All
It's true.
right.
True.
So uh, first, thanks for those who joined us last week. We got a lot of great feedback. Really appreciate it. We still have not mastered looking at comments in real time, so forgive us. We're still filling this out, but we're going to get there. But I know we have an ambitious agenda, and Karen, you're going to have an enviable job of Lenny wrangling. So
Yeah.
go
It's
for it.
fun, actually. Yeah. So what's interesting is we did get some feedback on last week. Lots of people told us how much they loved it, Lenny, and that was great, and how much they're looking forward to it. Also, really, really good stuff. Keep the feedback coming in because we also got the feedback that we cut off the AI conversation too short. It was too like they were like, nope, we wanted a little more from you. So we were trying to stay within our 15-minute window, but people want to talk about AI. I thought that we'd be done with that topic, or at least not done, but I thought it would be a little bit like tempered. No, everybody wants to talk more. And a lot happened with AI this week. So
Yep.
we're going to start there. We're going to talk about some of the risks, some of the things we've been reading about in terms of synthetic data and problems. And then we can talk about some of the cool stuff we saw.
Sure. All right. Is that my cue?
Yeah, that's your cue to start talking about that. The negatives that I think are on people's minds as we start to explore the space.
Sure. Well, first, shout out to Ray Pointer. Ray has definitely been on top of this topic as well, and he wrote a great post this week on synthetic samples, synthetic respondents, whatever we want to call it.
Yeah.
And it is definitely a hot topic and has been for a while. So, to be clear, what we are seeing, this isn't hypothetical. It's happening right now. Right, there are companies that are deploying this. Um, Not a big surprise on the marketing side. So, it's kind of the new version of lookalike modeling and mirroring, except on steroids, like everything
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
AI is.
Yeah.
And on the research side, we are seeing pretty rapid adoption. And here's what we're seeing, and I think this is really interesting, and it will dovetail into the rest of the conversation. The So kind of early stage conceptual mapping. We're seeing really what looks like the equivalent of focus groups utilizing AI generated responses to understand landscape work, right? Category landscape, market sizing, persona development, things that normally we would be doing utilizing existing data. Or I'm sorry, using studies. Now we're using existing data. Um, and what I'm not seeing is anybody saying, "Oh yeah, this is gospel," right? Oh,
Yeah.
let's go make $1 billion decision off of this.
Right.
No, um, there's still okay. This is interesting. It's helped clarify some of our thinking. Now we need to validate it, and we need to ask more questions that this is now prompted, just like we see in the research process, right?
Right.
Exploration and validation.
Yeah.
So it's a new piece of it. Now that it definitely is impacting spend on
Yeah.
things that would have normally happened in that early stage traditional research process. Um, the so that's we're going to deal with that, but it's also creating a real opportunity, and this is particularly interesting. I think as we see panel companies start to adapt to this, the opportunity for panel companies to become effectively kind of moded AI training sets, right, based on deep profiles of attitudes and behaviors and emotions and all of those things for brands to be able to explore it. It's almost like having a proprietary panel or a community, but you know, in early, it doesn't cost as much, right? You're not
Yeah,
paying
yeah,
incentives.
yeah.
So that's happening. Um, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. What's also interesting is I picked up this week that GPT-4
Yeah, yeah,
is
it's not doing
degrading.
as good. And now
Yeah.
I pay, I'm one of those people that that has the subscription to it, and I have noticed it is not. There are some things it's so great at, and everybody on my team knows. Like we talk to it a lot, and we're like, let's just ask our friend ChatGPT.
Mm.
So it's just not as good as it was a few months ago, and I have noticed it. And I thought, am I crazy? Maybe it's me, but no, I think that's what's coming out is that there are some flaws
Mhm.
that are happening over time. But look, it's a prototype, right? It is real time being iterated on. If you think about design thinking at its best, we are in a cycle, and there's going to be launches, and it's an operating system that will be improved, and there will be glitches that have to be fixed. So back to the spend, though. You were talking about the spend. Some of the things that we saw, Qualtrics is on my radar a lot after their big X4 summit that I went to for the first time last year. So
Mhm.
we're deeply into the CX category, if you will. But they
Right.
invested, they're spending 500 million, or they plan to spend 500 million on AI in the next few years. And then I think you shared from Research Live how Human Aid is introducing AI prompt training. So
Mhm.
not just an investment in the tech, but an investment in learning and development for teams. So I think that that's a trend that we will continue to see, is that people need to invest in the research, the development, the developing of your people,
Mhm.
upskill them to
Yep.
these, the skill sets they will need to make the most of what we're heading into. So I think the investment in it is really something to take note of.
It really is. And we talk about ChatGPT because it's almost become like Google. But do we always
Yeah.
mean Google? No. So there are multiple. There is Bard from Google. One of the things Apple is developing their own. Gosh, what is the other one that we were exchanging? Or at least I shared. It was on Product Hunt on one of the new LLMs that has an even larger capacity. I forget the name of it. So
I don't remember which one. Bard, Bing, Google, Apple.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't remember.
there's just so many, right,
Yeah.
that are coming out. So when we talk about this, let's remember we are talking about when we talk about ChatGPT, that is one very specific solution
Yeah.
that was kind of first out of the gate. There are many more
Yeah.
already a market
Yeah.
coming into the market.
Yeah.
They're all, and like anything else, there's going to be, some are going to be better than others, but it doesn't take away the point that the era of being able to utilize existing data,
Yeah.
whether that is public or private, and utilizing LLM solutions to generate insights that can drive exploration and business impact down the road. We're there. It's not
Yeah.
going away, and the adoption is through the roof.
Yeah.
And we have to adapt to that. And I love your point in that, what Human Aid was a great example. I mean, Annalise has been there forever, right? I mean, she's a very senior person within the
Yeah.
organization. And, that they are saying, oh, we need to train these folks because
Yeah.
this is not just a new tool,
Yep.
um, it is a new life skill.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
And I mean,
Uh,
the companies that, or the products, companies and products that are coming to market every day. Lenny and I, for those of you who are curious about like what Lenny and I do with our time half the time is like always scouring, always curating random sites. And it's like there are so many new products coming to market quickly, more quickly than we can track for every purpose. So it is also something that, like, if you're in the research ops space, you have to be tracking the new products that are launching, because you have to know what are some of the platforms that we need to be using, what are some of the tools we need to integrate for our research business.
Yeah.
So I think, research ops professionals really need to be scouring Product Hunt the way we do, to say, like, what's out there, what's new, what's helpful. I mean, every day when I check my feed and there's something new, I'm like, I need to try this one out.
Yeah.
So um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot of work to stay ahead of the curve, but am I allowed to shamelessly plug our event, because we will have a prompt writing workshop on it.
Go ahead.
So,
Shamelessly plug. Yeah.
sorry everybody. I
It's
don't mean it
our
in any
live stream.
live
Yeah, we're
stream.
going to talk
It's
about our own
just
event.
I'm excited. Natalie and I spent some work with the kind of the speaker who's going to be doing our prompt writing workshop at our AI event, which I'm really excited for people who take advantage of that, because we're going to have, real time, opportunities to play with prompt writing and to learn kind of how do we master the prompts within the research field specifically. There's a lot of prompts out there that are being shared, and there's knowledge sharing for prompts, and how can you store your prompts and how can you organize your prompts, but this one's going to be specific about the research industry and our use for it. So it's going to be catering to prompts for our use cases. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. Well, and let's build off that just for a second. I know we got a lot to cover, but I think effectively, and I'm sorry, I have a new light and it's decided to like strobe. Apologies. So, the asking good questions, right? When
Yeah.
we boil it down, right, this is a new exploratory tool, to ask good questions. And that's why I'm particularly optimistic about the state of the industry,
Yeah.
because we are built on effectively asking questions. Now,
Yeah.
what this is going to tell us, kind of like secondary research, it fills in knowledge gaps, and we've got this library of information now, and we can probe it, and rather than running tabs, we can just ask it to tell us what it is, and that's really cool and interesting. But we need to. It, I do not believe that we are anywhere near a future where the ability to think, to understand business issues, even the role of intuition, I think is only going to increase in importance. Process is going to be streamlined, no doubt about it. So, but but to be consultative, all those things we've been talking about forever, right?
Yeah.
Um, those things are going to continue to do well. And I should point out, it's interesting if you just kind of look at mergers and acquisitions and buzz and hiring, full service agencies, especially those that tend to be more consultative, seem to be kicking ass right now. So,
Yeah.
and I think it's a reflection of that, the
Yeah.
need to understand and ask questions and build.
Yeah. And let's switch gears to kind of something else that we really want to talk about, with this idea of the full service consultancy and market research spending, because we wanted to talk about that, right? The report that came out that talks about where we are with net spending on market research, and then of course Lucy Davison's post on LinkedIn this morning, which kind of offers a counter to people's first reaction to it. So share a little bit about what that report is, and then we'll talk.
Sure. So it's the IPA Bellwether report. It comes out, I think, each quarter. It is UK specific. That is what it's looking at, and it's looking at advertising spend and research spend. And the report said there was a decline. And Lucy, shout out Lucy, a great friend of ours, and we love you very much, made a fantastic point that you know it's the spend is shifting. So because tools, et cetera, so there's so much in the marketing ecosystem that can give us. We need to. Sorry, let me back up because I've got a lot going through my head. It's just like what we saw with automation, right? When we'll talk about the automated ad testing, right? The Zappies of the world, right? All those companies. It didn't eliminate ad testing at all. Actually, I would argue ad testing probably increased, but the cost declined, right? It became much
Yeah.
more agile and iterative, and the ability to quickly go do that. And all of the automation approaches, whatever it, I used ad testing as one example, but anything along those lines, the what technology allowed us to do was to just make it look really different as the spending shifted. And I've worked with brands where they said, okay, we don't need to spend, $100 million on ad testing anymore because it simply doesn't cost that much. So that budget is now, 20 million. But we're not going to, that doesn't mean that 80 million goes away. We're going to allocate that 80 million to something else. right?
Right.
For
Right.
things that are more strategically important. So, so I wonder if things like IPA, if they are actually measuring the right things. And I
Yeah.
commented on Lucy's post that I
Yeah,
think
and I
that's an
think for
important
those of you who
consideration.
didn't read Lucy's post, one of the things she was saying is we've done a really great job as an industry developing, cheaper, faster solutions. So if we can do more for less, it's actually quite logical that spending could comfortably be reallocated, right? So maybe a little less spending here, but more, or and maybe it's less spending in MRX, but more spending in CX, right? I don't
Right.
know all of the logistics there. Like, where's that money being repurposed? And I think it brings, just like true research, like whenever the best research, opens up more questions for you and more things that you want to know if you're curious. So,
Right. Well, I mean, and let's look at 2020, right? It was a great test case for this. We saw it happen in real time. You
yeah,
know, the business reality was, everyone, oh crap, we need to understand what's happening.
yeah,
So budgets were shifted. I mean, yes, some categories took it, they took it on the chin and budgets did decline, no doubt, right? But in others, like CPG, their budgets didn't decline, right? They just shifted
yeah,
because their business issues they needed to address were different. And in other ways, to your point about creating technology that just allowed us to do things differently, qual, right?
yeah,
So in-person qual, I mean, it flipped, right, to 80% virtual and 20% in person, where before, for years, it had been the exact opposite.
yeah,
And what have we seen happen? And I think that's the important part, and use qual as an example, right? In-person qual, it's come back up. It's about 50-50 now, but it's different, right?
yeah,
I don't know if the podcast uh, with our friends at Sago has
yeah.
been published yet,
Isaac.
but with Isaac, but we did a great discussion on it. He did research on this with their internal volume, and they see it's sensory, it's all of those things.
Yeah,
That's what's driving that qual. So it's finding a leveling point of fit for purpose,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And as all these tools and these things change to the business need, we don't need to have this knee-jerk reaction of, oh crap, this is declining. It may be declining if a business is just doing traditional ad testing, they may be absolutely feeling a hit,
yeah,
no doubt, right? But those who are doing automated ad testing are not. So, we need to look at the landscape, we need to ask the right questions, and we need to have perspective on all of this. And it goes right back to our ChatGPT question, right?
yeah,
Spending is going to shift. Doesn't mean it goes
yeah.
away. It's just going to shift. And
Speaking of shifts and
yeah,
ad testing, can I
yeah,
segue?
please, I get going. Everybody, you got reel me in,
I
reel me
know,
in.
I know. I'm reeling you in. No, because we do want to talk about a third thing, and it's funny because Lenny and I we literally had to go back and forth on Slack and be like, do we want to talk about threads? Do we need to talk about threads? Like, what's going on with threads? And I'm like, I don't know. It's irrelevant. Like, are people like to me and or do we need to talk about it? So we netted out that we need to talk about it. But a little bit of backstory. I am one of those people that it's like, yeah, I checked it out and I can't seem to get engaged there. And I'm not a fan of Twitter. I'm not really there. I've been on and off Twitter for too many years, but I can't seem to engage on threads. It's making me a little crazy because I'm like, it's not getting me or I'm not getting it. So I'm having a personal disconnect, which is the bias that I bring to this conversation. So and somebody on our team is like, oh, threads is killing Twitter. So Lenny and I have been discussing this, and then I said, how is it relevant? Because we want to talk about things that are relevant to this industry.
Mhm.
And how is what's going on with this sort of threads launch relevant to insights professionals? And it all comes down to ad spending and where brands are trying to engage with consumers. So
Right,
let's
right.
talk.
Yeah, and yeah, I think a lot of people are experiencing what you're talking about, right? So is Threads killing Twitter? I don't see data that supports that. I think engagement's an issue, but it's not because of Threads. So Meta, our friends at Meta, no offense, right?
Yeah,
It's the fragmented ecosystem.
right.
And it's just one more example of that. I mean, yes, we all like the drama. Are Elon and Zuck gonna battle it out, and whatever. That could be fun,
We'll get them
but
on a live stream. Anyway,
that's right.
that's fine.
But that's not what it's about. The about
Yeah,
is that we are in and have been for quite some time an incredibly fragmented media ecosystem. And in this case, we're
yeah,
going to talk about social media as part of media, right? And to your
yeah,
point,
yeah,
it goes to how do brands engage, understand, and activate consumers.
yeah,
Um, Growing up, there was print and there
yeah,
were like 5 TV channels.
yeah, yeah.
I mean,
True. It's
that's what
true.
happened in radio.
Yeah.
Um, Now it's an infinite variety, and particularly on social, and people are pulled in 100 different directions, and it all comes down to engagement, and that is important for us. And there are form factors involved with each of those things. Is a Twitter ad look the same as a Thread ad? Probably not.
Yeah.
And even more importantly, and I think this is something that we really need to get a handle on as an industry, the populations are different.
Yeah.
So, and we've always known that, but the people who utilize Twitter are demonstrably different than people that are utilizing Threads. And the people
Yeah.
that utilize both of them are demonstrably different than the people who, are just utilizing Facebook or
Yeah. Yeah.
Instagram or, any of these other platforms. And it's our job to help understand those differences, to help
Yeah.
advise clients on, how they can engage with those populations. Because at the end of the day, the example I always use, right? P&G, Mark Pritchard has said for years that their goal is to have a one-to-one relationship in real time with everybody on the planet.
Yeah.
And
But
to,
what's interesting, Lenny, is that I want to make sure we touch on before we wrap is something you shared with me actually in this conversation that you and I have, which is pharma leaning in so heavily.
yeah,
So I thought that was fascinating. So when you think of the entire ecosystem of brands that could show up, how the pharma brands, I think one of the articles you shared with me was saying that Threads is attempting to focus on safer, less controversial topics. So therefore, pharma is leaning in perhaps more significantly because of that, because of this perception that things are going to be a little bit less controversial there. So what have you read on that?
yeah, I mean, I think there's, yeah, I mean, that's almost a third rail topic in some ways. The brands are always going to go where they think it benefits their brand the most
Yeah.
and where they can engage with the right audience, deliver the right message at the right time, and get the right information to drive that.
Yeah.
So, in pharma, it's been a big shift for years. Pharma trying to act more like CPG,
Yeah.
um, and that means they want to engage with consumers directly. And the U.S. is one of the few countries where they actually can do that.
Yeah.
It's no surprise that they're paying attention to where can we go that isn't contro controversial topics related to
Yeah.
pharma are
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
being discussed,
Right.
and that we can get in and try and engage with people more. And they are. On the Gen2 side, we're doing work with two pharma companies right now, and they're leaning into social media analytics a lot.
Yeah.
So I think that it makes perfect sense that would be happening.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it will circle back around to connect the dots here. What is interesting is that these platforms, Meta launched their own AI this week as well, or at least
Yeah.
announced they were going to, right?
Yep.
So we always think about the power of generative of LLMs is that it synthesizes data so easily.
Yeah.
But what happens when the data is moded? Because
Yeah.
that's where we're heading to, just like Apple launching their own, right?
Yeah.
This revolution in technology is not going to solve the critical issue that Meta, Facebook, Google,
Right.
everybody,
Right.
and all the sub-platforms are going to build moats around their data because the data is
Yeah.
valuable, and they're going to
Yeah.
have to pay for it to engage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we need to be conscious of that, or else we get into silos. It's sample bias.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. And, I'm excited actually. Another plug. I'm so sorry. My day job is like thinking about the speakers at our events. So I can't help but like detach those two. But, with the health event that we have coming up for later this year, I'm very curious as to whether some of these topics will be, kind of be coming up in the speaking sessions that we're giving out shortly. I think our call for speakers ends today for health. So we're going to start to really dig in and unpack that one next. And I wonder if we'll be talking about some of these things. So it's a cool time to talk about pharma. That's for sure.
It is, and no doubt.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So we last week we were right at 20 minutes. I think we just went a little bit over, but
Yep.
I think we're still within range.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
anything
no,
else?
I think again, today we talked about just over 20 minutes. Last time we were shy of 20 minutes. So who knows where we're going to net out, but I think it's time to wrap. So that's our show for today. Every Friday, this is what we're going to be doing. And so we'll be paying attention to the news that's out there, thanks to the people that share it and that share with us or that share in the world, because we'll be paying attention. And yeah, it's pretty cool. I hope you're enjoying it. Give us feedback. What else do we want to say to wrap, Len?
think that's it. Well, again, one more shout out to reiterate what you said, like Ray Pointer, Lucy. I mean, we're
Yeah.
monitoring LinkedIn. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
We may not always comment on your posts, but we're damn sure paying attention.
Yeah.
And thank you for helping to prompt us to think about new things. So
Yeah.
yep,
Cool.
that's it.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Be well. All right,
Bye.
bye. I still see the recording light.
I do too. I don't know what to do.
I think we're still on. So we better just hang up.
This is our blooper reel.
We're still getting the hang of it.
Natalie, what do we do?
I think we just end. So.
All right, we're gonna end. We're gonna leave.
All right, we're
We
gonna
leave.
leave.
All right,
Bye,
we're leaving.
everybody. Take care.